Hey guys, it's your wingman Sky, and I'm very excited to bring you this X-Wing no damage run on Outpost Beta. It's a chance to revisit the overpowered Rebel fighters, and a welcome break from the hectic breakneck speed of Imperial dogfighting. I'll focus on dealing with lock-ons from the ground and strategies for performing strafe runs. Shout out goes to Jess Tilly, Immersive Gaming, and Trace On for suggesting these topics in the comment section of previous videos. Also a big shout out and thank you to Heracles Porsche for being kind enough to feature me on his channel. I know many of you came here after watching his video. I'll link his channel in the description. Now, I thought about showing the round uncut, but I think that 15 minutes of gameplay would put even the most dedicated pilot to sleep. So, I've chosen to edit out some of the less important parts. In any event, it's going to be an episode packed to the brim with analysis and insight. So I hope you enjoy. Of course, every Starfighter run's gonna have a few dogfights. This one is pretty run-of-the-mill. Shields up, killed the first one head on. The second one gets a bit of a first mover advantage on me. I pretty much bet on him horizontal looping, and I use a vertical loop to cut into it. I think he completely lost track of me as it continues to loop horizontally, even after I fire a torpedo and disengage.
Enemy fighter neutralized.
I always find more time to perform strafing runs when playing as the Rebels. Imperial players tend to ignore the TIE tokens, and it's a lot easier to gain air superiority as the Rebels, even in the X-Wing phase. On Outpost Beta, I always try to maneuver around to the left to strafe the ground. The mountain to the right blocks your view. I can't believe I don't get this ATST kill, but I'm sure it damages enough for someone else to get it, and that's the most important thing. During the first two phases of Walker Assault, I'm always wary of the enemy spawns. I always face the enemy spawn when performing strafe runs. This guy's coming in fast. He probably used a speed boost. I avoid directly killing it head on nowadays. A lot of times you'll take a missile hit or get rammed by the ship spinning out of control death animation. By the way, this move is essentially a low yo-yo. Stay tuned for my guide on fighter maneuvers, as it's the video I'm going to work on next. Teammates spawning in always gives me a sense of security. Even though playing as the Rebels is less nerve-wracking than playing as the Imperials, it's still not a good feeling being up there all alone like that. I'm not really going to get much on this strafe run. I'm too focused on watching the Imperial spawn. I know that since the uplink is off, there are probably some infantry around the uplink. You can also try shooting in known areas of high traffic like the mountaintop or doorways. Putting some time in playing as infantry can give you an idea of the best places to try to shoot. I'll duck behind this mountain to dodge this lock-on. If a missile incoming indicator appears before a lock-on indicator, it means that the ATST fired a lock-on missile at you. Those are slower moving, but generally a little more tenacious. Also, I don't think the shields can block the ATST missiles, like they can the ion torpedoes. I'm going to drop what I'm doing and prepare to strafe the AT-ATs here. I always strafe facing the Imperial spawn, as smart players will choose this opportunity to try to get the jump on you. It used to be that you should take down the walker on the right first, because it had line of sight on the whole battlefield during the third phase. They patched out the player controlled spawn in the third phase, but it's still good to take this one out first. Here comes one of those smart Imperial players trying to get the jump on us and push us out during the bombing run. Again, I'm going to avoid engaging a direct head-on, even as an Imperial pilot, and try to maneuver behind and kill him. Killing enemy starfighters is always your first priority, followed by playing ground objectives, such as strafing AT-ATs and providing supporting fire on uplinks. Even one strafing run by a Rebel fighter can provide the damage of an entire team of infantry using small arm fire, so it's important to stay alive. Again, I ducked behind a mountain to dodge a lock-on. When I first started playing Battlefront, I would just sit back in the spawn and try to kill all the Imperial fighters and head on with shields up. You can actually score fairly well that way, but it's kinda selfish. Nowadays I get down there and support my teammates as best I can. I never go for no damage runs, or even no death runs. I always get in there and help out my teammates if they have a tail, or try to provide air to ground support on the uplinks. The A-wing spawning in during the second phase always gives me a greater sense of security. I know that most Imperial pilots will instinctively try to go for them first, although they should really try to kill the X-Wings first. A lot of times you can see signs of life like blaster fire on the field. Players using turrets also show up as bright red dots. That's always something to watch out for. Also, if you're on the ground using a turret, this is something to know as well. Just get off a couple shots and leave it before you get bombarded. I couldn't get a good shot on those players behind the mountain, so I'll have to come around and try to get a better angle on the next strafe. However, I can't focus on the infantry too much. I have to watch the enemy spawn. As usual, this TIE interceptor pilot locks in on an A-wing and makes it easy for me to extend my no damage run. Even I sometimes find myself focusing too hard on A-wings and end up getting taken out by that stray X-wing. You'll kill 2 X-wings in the time it takes you to kill 1 A-wing. I'm going to avoid over pursuing this ATST. It's nowhere near an objective. It's not worth flying into enemy territory where there's TIE interceptor spawns and ground lock-ons just waiting for you. Another Imperial spawn. Now, this one I goof a little bit. I didn't mean to shield ram there. Oh well, it saved my perfect run. I'm not sure what I was trying to do there. I think I expected him to use a speed boost and come in a lot faster. I'm glad they're patching out shield ramming, as it's pretty stupid. Piloting a Starfighter is a great opportunity to take out those mountaintop campers. You might want to wait until you get close enough to the ground before you start shooting. It's better to actually know you're shooting at something, instead of shooting at nothing and overheating. Your blasters have insane splash, so you should still be able to get a kill from pretty close without risking a crash. This is a pretty typical ground lock during a strafe run, and the easiest to dodge. Just use your defensive maneuver at the last second and turn away from the lock-on indicator. One of the biggest things is not to get too greedy on a strafe run. If you're too low to the ground, you'll crash when you try to use your defensive maneuver. You can also turn toward a lock-on and then loop away from it. You can tell the direction it's coming from by the on-screen indicator. Just turn away from it. I also like to turn perpendicular to the lock-on and vertical loop. Here I face the lock-on to my right side and vertical loop. As you can see, dodging lock-ons is very situational. Another smart Imperial pilot spawning in during the bombing run. Unfortunately, his teammates are too cowardly to jump in the air and support him, and we make quick work of this lone TIE interceptor pilot. Again, he makes the mistake of engaging one of my A-wing teammates, and we easily push the Imperials out of the air for the remainder of the round. In the third phase, you can relax a bit, as there's no longer any threat of Imperial fighters spawning in. At this point, I kinda get the feeling that I may get a perfect game, but I don't play defensively and do circles around my spawn. I'm going to get in there and support my teammates on the ground as best as I can. Try to fly in close enough to see the players on the ground before opening fire. The sky in the turret lights up like a Christmas tree. I'll take this time to address one of the biggest concerns that I have with some of my fellow pilots out there, and that is that Rebel fighters shouldn't really be used to camp the Imperial spawn. As you can see, you're more than capable of providing supporting fire on the ground and handily taking care of Imperial fighters. The fighters are the only vehicles that the Rebels have, and you need to be supporting your teammates as best you can. Unfortunately, if the Imperial pilots are really tenacious, you may have to spend a lot of your time dogfighting. That always limits the amount of time you can spend supporting your ground units. Sometimes you'll go like 30-2 in a fighter and your team will still lose. There's always an ATST that you can strafe on. A lot of times they'll fire on the battlefield out of the range of the infantry ion torpedoes, and it'll be up to you as a pilot to take them out. If you're really close to the ground, make sure you level up your ship before using your defensive maneuver. The actual maneuver seems kinda random for some reason, and sometimes it'll throw you into the ground if you're too close, or your ship isn't level. Missiles will often continue to track you after you initially dodge them with a defensive maneuver. That's why it's important to continue to turn away from them. I get away with this one, as my shields absorb this ion torpedo, and I get to preserve my no damage run. At this point, based on the number of Y-wings we've called in, I know we're going to win, so I'm just trying to pad my kill-death ratio. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I enjoyed making it. Stay tuned because my next video will be a guide on the different fighter maneuvers that I use to get huge advantages on my opponent in dogfights. I'll be breaking down the techniques and when it's best to use them. I'm going to work very hard on it, and I think it will be the most useful video that I'll make, so be sure to catch that one. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.